Hey, Richie Smith from LensWizard.com, and we're talking about the gradient tool in Lightroom today. So I notice some beginners have problems with the gradient tool. They say it's cumbersome or it's fumbly, and some people get disgruntled by it and they move on and they just go to something like the adjustment brush or something like that. But there's actually just a really small little technique that some people overlook. So let's jump right in. We're in library. We need to be over in develop. So let's hit the keyboard shortcut of D. Takes us over to develop. And I have some images set up here that are perfect for working with the gradient. So a lot of times gradient, most often I use it on sky, but you can use it for editing purposes. You can also use it for creative purposes, and I'll show you a creative way to use the gradient tool towards the end of this video. So the gradient is located right here, and if you notice, it's the keyboard shortcut of M. So let's just hit M, and that opens up this here. Now the first thing you notice is my settings that I had last time. Okay, they're here. And I can zero these settings out by just double clicking on effect. So a lot of times I like to do that at the beginning, unless I'm applying a gradient to a series of images that maybe were all the same sky, and I know that I just want to keep on using that same gradient. But we're going to start with a clean slate. And what I'm going to do is, now that I'm on the gradient, if you notice I have my cursor is like a little crosshair. So you go up here to the top, in this case because we're applying it to sky, and we hold down and we drag down. But notice how I'm going back and forth. I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but especially when you're like this, it's real tippy, like a teeter-totter, and it just is cumbersome. And that's the thing that I see a lot of beginners have a problem with. They struggle with getting it straight. I know I did too. So Control Z undoes it. Here's the big secret, and it's hold the shift key. Hold the shift key, you go up to the top, and watch, I'm going to move my cursor back and forth, and when I move it, it doesn't do anything. It just keeps on pulling it down. Right? So Control Z, back up. Let's try it one more time. Without the shift key, it automatically, as soon as I touch it to the screen, it wants to go to one side or the other. So hold the shift key and pull it down, and it doesn't matter, you can apply gradients any way you want to apply them. If I wanted to come in from the side, hold the shift key, and it works nice and easy. So for this image, let's apply our gradient to the top and pull it down a little bit. Now as you see, nothing happened. Well, nothing happened other than these three lines on the screen because there's no effect yet. So if we hold, and this is how I do it, you can grab these sliders and you can pull them one way or the other. If you double click on the word for a particular slider, it zeroes that slider out. Pretty much everything in Lightroom is that way. What I like to do for my adjustments, put my cursor right over top, left click one time, release, and I can scroll. And if you notice, it goes in increments of 10. And as soon as you move your cursor away, you lose that. So that's a little tip in itself right there. And again, this is straight across Lightroom. All the controls work this way. So some go in increments of 5, some in 10. Light balance will go in increments. White balance will go in increments of 250, I believe. So let's apply a little bit of an effect. Let's go down here, put some contrast to it. Now you got to remember, this is your image, you're editing it. How are you editing it? Are you editing it to be a photo, or are you editing it to be something more than a photo, like an illustration or a creative photo, I guess we should say. So if we bring, and we can move this around, we can grab it here and pinch it shut. and maybe right about there. And then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add some clarity. Another one that works really good sometimes is dehaze. You can get some really neat effects. Again, if you're going for something maybe more than, or if you just wanted to dehaze it a little bit. I'll tell you where the dehaze will work good is down on that part of it. Now, in the case of dehaze, notice it goes one increment at a time. Okay, so you have the ability, if you come to your center line here, you notice I move my cursor over this, and it gives me this little double arrow bowed in the center. That lets me tilt. Okay? And grabbing here moves it up and down. Now notice when I place my cursor over top of that, I'm not holding down, I'm just placing it over top. It shows me the mask of where the effect is applied. So shows me a mask. You can also get the mask without moving over the effect by pushing the letter O on your keyboard. O for overlay, I'm assuming, and it will show you the mask. Now it also puts a tick in this little box right here. If you watch this, I'll hit O and I get the tick comes in. So you can do it by hitting the letter O, or you can actually take your cursor and put it in there. Now I can add another gradient. I would go up here and hit new. And if I wanted to maybe bring a gradient up for the foreground, maybe I'm just playing here, but maybe I wanted to brighten my foreground and add a little contrast to that. Go down here to the dehaze. So you can play. Maybe you want to saturate it a little more. Maybe you want to make it sharper. You could make that foreground a little sharper, background less sharper. It's versatile. Now, if I want to go back to my first pin, all I got to do is go back and click on it. And if I want to go to this pin, I click on it. Now notice this pin, my effect is there. Up here, my effect is there. Okay, now, when I brought this gradient down, if you noticed, it applied the effect over top of the tree. The tree is in the foreground. Sky is more or less the background to foreground. This little box right here, this little switch, if I push that down, it turns all of the effects off. It turns off all the pins that I had and takes me back. So I can kind of see on, off. So if I look at my image, I see, yeah, I definitely applied that effect to that tree. So I can go up here, I can unapply it by taking the brush tool, and now you see I have a brush tool. You can change the size of the brush by scrolling up and down, and that plus in the center is not, some people think it's a crosshair, and I guess it could be, but if I push the Alt key on my keyboard, it becomes a minus key, so it's taking away. Now in this case, if I leave it as normal, plus key, and I come down, I'm actually applying more of the effect. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to unapply the effect, so I want to hit the crosshairs. Now real quick about the brush, size you can change by scrolling. You can change size over here. You can feather. Now feather is, you see how you have a inner circle and an outer circle. That space between the outer and the inner circle is your feather. And you can change the feather size. Now you can change the feather size independently on the add brush as you can on the take away brush or remove brush, whatever you want to call that. Auto mask. Auto mask will detect. It helps so you don't have to, like, I want to paint this out. So in order to do it without auto mask, I would have to make my brush really, really small and try not to go over the edges. Otherwise, I'm going to have a halo. I don't want that. So what I can do first is if I hold the space bar, brings up my magnifying glass plus, and I can zoom in on just that part of the image, release the space bar. So space bar gives you, when you're zoomed, it gives you your hand. Hold it down and you can move your image around. And release it and you're back to your brush. So if I come in here and I hold my Alt key, now notice I'm kind of, it's detecting what I don't want to touch. It's detecting that I don't want to touch the blue, and it's actually doing a pretty good job of it. Doesn't always work perfect, but it's actually doing a really good job. If you notice, there's no halo there. No halo at all. I wish Photoshop was this good. This brush that they have, whatever the algorithm is for it, it really, really does a great job. So I'm not going to paint this whole thing, but I think you kind of get the idea. You don't have to use auto mask. Auto mask will, if you're doing a lot of painting, brushing stuff out, masking, auto mask may slow your system down a little bit. You may notice your system glitching as you're doing it. You paint the brush stroke and then nothing happens and then the brush stroke appears. It could be because of auto mask. Okay, so just beware of that. And wow, these lilies are really, really beautiful. So if we want to zoom out, we just hit our space bar, hold it, touch on it, and well, I say that, and for whatever reason, there we go. Okay, so let's back out of this and let's go to look at our creative. So creatively, we just want to get out of this, and we don't want this effect applied. If we wanted it applied, we'd either hit M again or we would hit done. And you know, if I hit M, it closes it, and I hit M again, opens it up, and down here I can reset it. Okay, so that's a kind of a little more than a basic overview of the gradient. There is a few more things, but I think for the most part, that's what everybody's looking for. And let's go over here, let's click on this image. Okay, this is an image of a girl I shot on an island in Thailand in 2014. And I don't think the sun was up here, but what it was, it's on an island, so it's kind of jungly, rainforesty. And this was an opening in the canopy, which made a really bright highlight. But we can actually make it kind of look like maybe there's sun there. And this is what I would call a creative use of the gradient tool. So I'm going to hold the shift key and I'm going to start right in this corner, and it didn't do what I wanted it to. There. It's not doing what I wanted to. Maybe I got to just do it without the shift key because I'm doing it on an angle. And I'm going to come in, I can always adjust it later, but I'm going to come in right there. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to run the white balance. And I'm going to start to add, so it looks like there's some sunlight there. I'm going to run it up pretty high. And then I'm actually going to run my exposure up. And maybe I'll run the saturation too. And now I'm just going to go up here and grab this. Saturation, not so much. I can play with the contrast a little bit. and I can turn it on and off to see what my effect was. So I can make an effect that looks like sunlight coming in. Um, Again, you could use the effect to highlight a light that's already there, a color that's already there, or take away. I could desaturate. I could go the other way. So it has creative uses as well as just plain editing uses. Um, this is just a mock-up real quick. I mean, I could bring that down onto her a little bit, and it looks just like the sunlight is shining on her face and coming through. Actually, it's not too bad. So I'm going to leave that one like that. That's the gradient tool. There's a little bit more to be said about it, but not too much. Okay, everybody, if you want to see more of these videos on Lightroom, and I'm going to have a Photoshop series going here in a few days for just beginner techniques in Photoshop, you can go to my channel on Vimeo, which is Lens Wizard, and I'm on social media. You know, I have a website, obviously, lenswizard.com and recklesspixel.com, and you can check me out on Instagram. I'm on Instagram a lot. I have a Facebook page, Lens Wizard, and I'm on Tumblr, Pinterest. Have any questions, you can email me, rich@lenswizard.com. Okay, everybody, have a great day. Thank you.